Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Insights for Impact with Pete and Sandra D. Sandra D, why don't you want to introduce yourself quickly? Let's get this ball rolling.
Absolutely. Hi there. I'm Sandra D. Robinson. I'm a communication and leadership coach. I am based out of Austin, Texas, but right now I am on the road. So I happen to be in Western Slope, Colorado. Hence, my background may not look as stellar as it usually does, but I'm glad that we can pipe in. I'm doing as Peter and I talked about before, the value of downtime. So we were actually taking a vacation, and I am midst vacation right now, just checking in. But I love this topic, and I love the opportunity to be able to share this type of conversation with Peter and with all of you. So please join in the conversation.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Sandra D. I'm Peter Ainley. I do leadership coaching and leadership development for tech leaders who want to take their businesses to the next level, scale up and grow. So today, yes, we're talking, what if we lead well? What if I, as a leader, lead well? What happens? How do we do it? What's the ins and out? Sandra, you read a book recently, and you were talking. We were talking in our in our
Yes.
in our
I,
premium about this. So, do you want to share a little bit?
I'd love to. And it was actually me rereading a book. So my husband laughs. I can walk into like a bookstore and get into the psychology section, and it's basically like he has to come and get a hook and pull me out. So I've been on a Malcolm Gladwell kick lately. I love how he writes. It's very primarily scientific, but he does a lot of storytelling. So it's very easy to get through his books. And I reread actually his book, Blink. And in this book, now I'm going to start this conversation for today in taking a look at some extreme situations, which granted, most leaders are not going to have life and death situations, but let's just take a look at what happens in the extreme and then see. I'll turn it over to you, Peter, so that you can take it from there. But using Malcolm's book, okay, he talks about the ability to actually perform mentally at our best when our heart rate is in control. So he had done a ton of research that started to realize that at about 175 heartbeats per minute, we start to get into almost this reptilian type brain. We get into this react and not response mode where we become almost unable in certain circumstances to do things that would be normally very easy for us. For instance, dialing 911. It has actually been recommended by some people that we practice dialing 911, and you're like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Of course, it's the simplest thing in the world. But when you're under stress, your brain, your heart rate goes up, your brain starts to go into this mode that it's not very effective anymore. And we honestly have records of people that cannot remember. They dial 411 instead. And it sounds crazy, but when you're in that type of stressful situation, that's when mistakes can be made. And we see it over and over again when we're studying these episodes of police brutality. And you wonder, how in the world could this happen? How does somebody make some of the mistakes that we see? And this is something that I think was really fascinating about this book, particularly because of everything that's been happening recently, with the social injustice and things like that being really in focus. I think he wrote this book before a lot of that stuff had happened. So it was very interesting to me. There's a practice that he was mentioning as well that armed security teams go through in one circumstance where they are actually simulating getting shot in the line of their security duty. It sounds awful, and they're not actually shot, but they do use something that creates an impact in their body so they feel it. And he said the first time through, as you would expect, their heart rate just soars and they lose the ability to focus, to be able to make those decisions in a split second or two. By the fifth or sixth time through this simulation process, they're able to actually continue on with their duties and make much more effective decisions in that blink of an eye. Hence the title of his book. It's really learning how to think without thinking, so reacting. And we talk about leading well. A lot of that comes in times of stress. Granted, it may not be life or death situations like what these people are training for, but Paul Van Riper is someone that he talks about in this book as well. He's a Marine Corps commander. Paul actually is a great chapter, and they're all about him and what he accomplished. But to give Paul the credit for this research, he studied nurses and doctors in the ER, firemen and police officers and the like, and how did they make those decisions in the blink of an eye that seemed to be, for the most part, the right decisions. And it comes down to dealing in extreme stress with trusting their intuition and their experience. So again, a lot of that is could be visualization, it could be simulation, it could be simply going through being in the environment for a very long time and being able to make those decisions from experience. But I love the fact that they talk about intuition. And just touching on this before I turn it over to you, Peter, intuition is something that I work on when I'm working with the horses. I didn't mention this, but something that's unusual about what I do is I teach leadership in a very kinesthetic way, having leaders and professionals pair with horses. We don't ride, it's all relationship based, communication based, and it's all on the ground type work. So when I'm doing these retreats, one of the first things that we do is have people focus in on how they receive their intuitive hits. Now, Malcolm Gladwell actually makes a very separate definition for intuition. He kind of separates himself from the word intuition. And I think, in my personal opinion, he does this because he does write more scientifically. And intuition sometimes can have the connotation of being a little woo. The reality is, intuition does have a lot of scientific, there are many different types of intuition, keep in mind, but there can be a lot of science that backs up this intuitive hit. And that's what we're talking about today, is that not necessarily the intuitive hit that a mother feels when their child 2,000 miles away has an issue, but the intuitive hit that people get when they're making a decision in a split second. So with these women in particular that come to my retreats, I find that the corporate world has actually dumbed down their response, or they have dumbed down their response to their intuition from being in that environment. What's interesting is that study after study for years have shown that male CEOs of Fortune 500 companies really rely on that intuitive fit, but they call it gut. They say, well, I listen to the facts, I listen to the analysis, and then I go with my gut. That is what I'm talking about in this circumstance as intuition. And so when these folks are making these quick decisions, and Van Riper even took a bunch of military people into the trading center in Manhattan and watch the traders deal with their minute to second decisions about money. So there was a lot of similarities in the decision making that he saw there, because again, it was relying on their experience and their basically intuitive hit. And so from this, I'm going to turn it over to you, because I know that you, Peter, really have a lot of experience and a lot of training, and you work with people on reacting versus responding and the different states of mind that you label it that we should be in. Now, like I said, granted, we're not all going to be dealing with life and death or, losing a fortune every single day, but it does help to really be able to visualize what we want out of a decision and be able to make it quickly when we're in a leadership position. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And it's when we understand, from a leader's point of view, when we're dealing with people, when we're dealing with situations, there are these almost instant reactions, or should they be responses, that we should make. And I mentioned that intentionally, reaction versus responses, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Because when we're dealing with people, we don't necessarily know how they're going to, in that moment, respond to us. As a leader, we are telling people this is what's going on, or we issuing in instructions. There is a response that comes from that person. How do we lead in the light of that? So how do we lead well? So I say reaction versus response is, from a saboteur point of view, from an impulse point of view, we react. There's this instantaneous reaction, and that, in some ways, when that is honed, then fine, maybe a reaction can be good. But responding to a situation as a leader is far more powerful. So it's important to remember here that as a leader, the more self-aware we are about how we are doing, how we are feeling in that moment, what the thoughts are that are going through our mind, the better able we are to respond, not react, but respond in a way that allows us to lead better in the circumstance, lead better in the situation. And when we respond better to our people, to our employees, to our staff, the workforce that we are leading, we get a much better response back. So it's actually, anyway, like sort of the mirror neuron effect. When we respond well, the people respond well back to us. You were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I wanted to point out that what you're talking about in my world sounds a lot like what we call emotional regulation.
Right. Wow.
Being able to like you said, how do you feel on the inside, and not that it, and to recognize that before responding to anything. Yeah.
Right. I call that sort of an element of this mental fitness here, where we train our mind. So back to your example earlier on of these security details forces, practicing, there's this training so that their blood pressure doesn't go through the roof and they're no longer able to respond. It's a fight or flight reaction. But when we work on our mental fitness, improve our mental fitness, improve the muscles, we are better able to respond in a more favorable, in a more real leadership way, authentic leadership way that is influential on people as opposed to reactionary.
Can you talk a little bit about saboteur? Because I think that's really fascinating. And I don't think you've actually explained what saboteur really is. And we all have one. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the saboteur realm, we actually have a judge. Every one of us has this judge, and that judge is basically the guy, gal, who criticizes everything we do, everything that everybody else does, and every situation we find ourselves in. So they judge everything. But the judge has these 9 accomplice saboteurs, and those vary in their strength. Everybody has a different set of saboteurs. And it's these saboteurs that cause us to react, to just jump off and just fly off the handle, just blurt out something that then a moment later we say, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Or it has a negative reaction in a response to that. So these saboteurs, the origins are, well, they kept us safe as kids, okay? That's where they were developed as a safety mechanism. And then over the years of experiences, as we go through life and through our working careers, they get reinforced unless we deal with them. And the power of mental fitness is here is to, hey, tell these saboteurs, okay, I've got it. Thanks very much. I don't need your help. Let me call on my sage and let them help in this situation and allow me to respond from that point of view. And that is a mental muscle that we can build effectively so that we respond, not react. Does that help a little bit?
No, that's great, because I love the term saboteur. And I know some people think, oh, I don't, they may assume what that is, or they may think I don't have one of those, but we all do. And I love it's almost like I'm very visual and I'm very imaginative. Big shocker, the background as an actor. Really? No way. But whenever you mention, the judge sitting there, I actually have this vision in my mind of like a panel of saboteurs sitting there with the judge. It's very funny for me, but it helps. I mean, that kind of stuff really helps me to visualize what I could be doing to myself. So I thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And as leaders, for us to lead well, the more aware we are of these saboteurs and how they treat us and how they think they always know better, the better able we are to then respond, be it in a more empathetic way. We're able to navigate the situation that we're in as a leader a lot better. We can explore what the opportunities might be for a more favorable outcome, and we can actually then respond maybe even more proactively. That allows us just to lead. I keep coming back to allow us to lead better. And the impact of that happens to be that we get our team, our staff, our employees, or anybody we're acting, it could be with a customer too, to respond and react and interact with us in ways that lead to more favorable outcomes. And that, I think, is a huge benefit for leaders in leading better.
Can we talk a little bit, touch a little bit about vision? Yeah. I was saying that the ability, and I know you talk about this a lot, but the ability to actually envision not just what you want, but also envision a worst case scenario. So for instance, I've dealt with people, training them for media and working with PR companies. And a lot of times companies have a PR company, right, essentially at their, on their speed dial in case something goes wrong. Okay, so a tweet that goes bad and suddenly they have to deal with a fallout from that. And I think the benefit of having someone like that, a PR company that may have someone like me, on their staff or on their speed dial, I think the benefit of that is that their job is to immediately see what could be coming and then take the spokesperson, the CEO, which isn't always the CEO that's up there and on taking the questions from the media, but it may be, and taking the person that's responsible for that and walking them through the worst case scenario. This is what happens if it's kind of like the security guards going through and actually feeling what it feels like to get shot. You're actually visualizing, okay, this is the way this interview could go. This is the way the fallout from this bad tweet, let's just say, could happen, and how do we handle that? And so I think being able to run through that simulation, even if it's just sitting with a PR person or someone like me and saying, okay, what if this gets thrown at you? What if that gets thrown at you? And then to be able to remain calm in that moment of chaos or stress.
Absolutely. Visualization, I think, is very powerful in the sense that when we sort of think through what could happen and the negative side of things, and maybe rehearse and plan out a response, not a reactionary note to it, but a response that elicits in a more positive reaction is key. Because it like your example of these security details, when we understand what the negative side is, or the worst case scenario is, yes, we plan for the best, but we're in a better position and prepared to deal with what might come out. And that, again, allows us to lead well.
So true. I'm laughing because just a personal note here. My husband works search and rescue for Texas Search and Rescue, Texar, which is the most unbelievable volunteer organization with extremely talented, a lot of former military. I mean, they are an army and a force to be reckoned with. They're really an amazing group. And he leads a lot with that. And he is so prepared for every possible thing that can happen, which is kind of what we're talking about from a mental state, right?
Yes.
That I bought him a t-shirt last year because he has so much in his truck that I put, in case of apocalypse, get in the truck, on his shirt, which it's so true. Like anything that you need, any case scenario that may happen, people run to my husband and I'm like, do you have this? And chances are, yes, he does. But that's kind of what we're talking about in a very literal sense of the mental preparedness that we can do. Like run through, I'm taking my company into this situation, or we're taking on a new product. Here's all the things that can happen. And it's so easy. I mean, I can speak for entrepreneurs particularly because I've worked with them for so many years before this. I think it's very easy to just see the end goal as the success that we envision and not picturing the stuff that could go wrong along the way. And that derailing along the way and the way you handle it is really going to be the way that I think success is determined quite a bit, especially for an entrepreneurial, adventure.
Absolutely. The way we handle any situation that we are faced with as a leader determines how successful we'll end up being, and how successful not only you as a leader are, but obviously as successful your business becomes. And there's many stories, we don't need to go into that, where leaders have not been prepared. They reacted badly, and we know the result of what happened. The company is no longer around us. We don't know them anymore. So it is an important element to prepare for the not so great outcomes that or reactions that we might receive, so we are better prepared. I mean, being prepared, the old, dare I call it, the Boy Scout motto was be prepared. Leaders should be prepared. I mean, it's important to be prepared. So yeah.
It is. I think there's that balance that is, I love to keep your eye on the ball, right? And I talk to people about that. And if you read Napoleon Hill, he really talks, or even William Waddles, they talk about being 100% focused on success. But there is that little piece that you have to spend a minute and go, okay, if this does happen, we'll go this direction, or I'll handle it this way. And yes, not spend too much time on the simulation of failure, but if it looks like something may be inevitable, that's a great time to be able to focus on getting through that with that simulation, the visualization, and to be able to, as you said, mental fitness and keep yourself calm through all of that. And I'm also thinking too, the value of, again, I have that picture in my mind of you saying like the saboteurs all sitting around. On the other hand, how great is it to be able to surround yourself with people that are not saboteurs, but are actually there to help you and support you? And so I think a big part of being able to understand where those, as one of my great women leader friends says, she calls them blind spots, right?
Yes.
It's the pieces that we can't see. It's the saboteurs that we can't see, but other people go, hey, red flag warning over here, and to be able to surround yourself with people that can support you in that way. There's I love quotes, and so I actually found this one quote this morning that I was just loving, and I loved who it came from, because I was looking up quotes for surrounding yourself with the environment and association and all of this. And I actually found something from someone that was not Napoleon Hill, but one of our favorite comedians, I think, on the planet, at least for me, Amy Poehler. And her quote is, "Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you, spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life." I decided to go with that quote today.
Well, there's that other quote that says the 5 people you spend and surround yourself with, spend most time around yourself with, will be the ones who either raise the bar for you or lower it. So that reflects leadership as well. It applies to every area of life. But I'm curious right now as to what listeners are saying. If there's anybody who wants to add something to that and share what for them is other elements of what does it mean to lead well. I see a great, Chris said here, I love that, great quote. So that was a great quote you gave us there. When we put under pressure, all we know, we forget.
Yes, it can happen. It doesn't have to happen.
If we're prepared, it doesn't. Right. It doesn't have to happen. Absolutely.
Like, I thought it was really fascinating to bring back up to that point that people forget how to dial 911. I mean, think about that. That was not part of, I don't believe that was part of Malcolm's book. That was something else that I was studying on this topic, and it kind of floored me. And then I stopped and I thought, well, yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see under duress that you're thinking this is, because normally that's readily accessible, but when your brain is in that state of fight or flight, it's not accessible, so practice. Practice.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, practice makes perfect. You look at sports teams. Hey, they practice over and over. The thought that came to mind is being prepared for the unexpected is when you see a football or a rugby ball, they're both similarly shaped. They bounce in a very unpredictable way. But if we can figure out, well, at least plan for where they might go, we can position our team ready.
Yes. And since we're talking about sports, and I happen to be in the high country of Colorado here, and I know that Chris Colt, who I think might be watching or chatting, and we brought him on the show just recently. Chris is a competitor with biking, and so he can attest to this. I know that folks that want to train for marathons, triathlons, the like, they will come, even if they're not racing in a high elevation, they'll come to something like where I am right now and train to put themselves through more extreme situations, and they act their body through more extreme situations and their mind. Because first day that I get to a place like this and I think I'm going to go out for a run and I take 20 steps and think that I'm dying, because I totally forget that I'm in this completely different atmosphere, right? But it makes you so much stronger when you are able to do that. But there is definitely even a mental part to that, because truly I go into a panic, and I've been here. My brother lives here. I'm here all the time. And there's always that panic that comes first, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get my breath? And then I go, oh, okay, yeah. And I talk myself down from the small ledge that I'm on and realize I can deal with this. It's going to take a moment. I just have to acclimate and kind of be patient and work through it. And I'll be better off in the end. When I get back home, running is actually easier for me. So it's one of those circumstances, kind of over preparing, right? As some people do, to be able to go into competition by coming to an environment that is a little more strenuous.
Here's Chris's comment. He said, yep, you go there, train, you come home, I'm a machine. when I came back from Red Bull 100, I was unstoppable. And there was another comment here. He's seen that this training in medical situations where people then completely forget what they know when dealing with trauma. Like, I mean,
Yes.
people, like, if that's scary, I mean, leadership should be scary then too. But hey, anybody else got any other shares they want to share in the comments with us who are listening in as to what? And we are going to carry on this conversation in our community, and I'll drop the link into the community in a moment here. So come and join on. If you're watching this as a recording, come and join us in the community. Give us your thoughts. Hey, let's share and banter backwards and forwards, because it's always good to share as leaders, because as you pointed out earlier, we all have blind spots. And when we can be supportive of one another, hey, we're better. We're able to lead better. There we go. We lead well.
Exactly. Exactly.
You want to bring a wrap to this, since we're coming down almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we can put a link in for the community, which you've probably already done.
Yeah, I'm just
because I know you
as we speak right now.
Awesome. Then go check it out. Our community is free right now. It will not remain that way, but I think it's really an awesome opportunity to get involved in a community. And Chris Colt is actually part of that whole thing. We're in with Chris's team on the Mighty Network. The group is not a LinkedIn group, so just want to point that out. Some people assume that it was, and we love LinkedIn groups, but this is not one of those. We actually have more interaction. It seems like it's a lot more timely, a lot easier to communicate with people and feel like just more, I would say, almost want to say in time, like to be a little more present when we're doing the Mighty Network community thing. So come join, check it out. We have the link there for you. So continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'd love to have that and share with one another, because we can all benefit from that, so that we can all as leaders lead well in our various situations. So, and yeah, I think that covered pretty much most. We did pretty good.
Yeah.
There's other comments coming in. I don't see any right now, but hey, if you've got comments and we kind of wrapped it up, please go to the community and share your thoughts there on how we can lead well, how can we lead better in our positions of leadership.
Yeah, and anything that you've learned. We love to hear stories from y'all, as we say in Texas. So if there's any situation that you've gone through, like Chris shared the bit about the training and how he came back as a machine, if there's something that you went through that you want to share in a brief little story, please do that. Like, I would absolutely love that. And it's in the future, then we might even feature you as a guest on the show here, as a fellow speaker on the show. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking to create in this community as well.
Talking about featuring, in 2 weeks, we're going to be featuring Jim Hardwick and hopefully his wife, and make that happen. And with what they've got as a vision, leaders, we need visions, vision as to what we're going to be doing and where we're taking not only our company, but ourselves as leaders. And we're going to be talking to them about their vision that they have for amazing project that they're doing over in Kenya. I'm not going to reveal any more, but you're going to come in and listen to that LinkedIn Live. So yeah, so that's in 2 weeks today. So it's
remarkable what you're doing. Yeah, remarkable stuff.
A little carrot for you. Yes. Anyway, well, folks, it's been a blast. Thanks very much. And as Chris said, we'll see you next week, y'all. I'm not very good at it, but
Got to get you to Texas and work on that.
Yes, I'll have to work on that one. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next week on Insights for Impact with Pete and Sandra D at 11 a.m. Eastern. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.